Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Nell 3D. She's a subtraction strategist, helps leaders escape burnout and diminishing returns by doing less, not more. She's Harvard trained, calls herself educated by horses, and is known for helping high performing leaders live better life without adding more to their plate. So we'll learn with her why doing more stops working, the hidden cost of achievement that outpaces alignment, and her practical stop drop framework for leading under pressure. Welcome to the show, Nell.
Thank you so much, AJ. It's wonderful to be with you.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Nell. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe, a lot of leaders, high performers across the globe will benefit from what we are going to learn about. We'll be talking and learning about the subtraction strategy from you. We'll talk about this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your background, your journey, your way, and also your story so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Sure, with pleasure. So when I was 12 years old, I had this very foundational experience. I moved from between two different towns. And certainly here in the US, I don't know as much about the Indian school system, but in this country, your zip code really determines your opportunity, right? And so I went from a very under-resourced school district, actually quite violent and problems with drugs and teenage pregnancy. My mom was self-employed, but she scrambled together and moved us to the next town, which had this very well-funded and supportive school system. And so that launched me to Harvard, which, was an incredible privilege and formative experience for myself, studying and learning and friendships. And so I decided then that I wanted to help fix this problem, that talent is absolutely distributed equally through the population, right? Through all the states of India, like all the states of the United States and every other country in between. But opportunity is not. And so to do that, I went into the nonprofit sector. I worked 10 years internationally, from Rome to Asia to Europe to Palestine, and doing really frontline service work, which was amazing and very impactful, very rewarding. And then I missed my dad's funeral. He died young of brain cancer, and I didn't choose to spend the time or the money to get from Palestine to California to mourn him. And then my marriage fell apart and I got divorced. And so I had these very personal experiences of this impactful, purposeful, aligned work that I was doing cost me so much personally. And so that's when I started to understand that this kind of one-dimensional, high-achieving pursuit that I had set for myself, in my case, it was about impact, but it was still one-dimensional, was not sustainable. And so I came back to the US actually and went to business school and found a way to have impact in the private sector, starting to do the work that you introduced of helping high achieving leaders to find more of a sense of purpose, but also wholeness and integration for work, for life, and for impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Nell. Now to understand it better, but before that, let's understand the horses part. Why do you call educated by horses? I thought Harvard itself is enough for a lot of people.
Pretty good. It is, AJ. It was pretty good. And that diploma, has gotten me into a lot of rooms, which I'm grateful for. But the horses are really smart. If we look at all of evolution, right? 3.8 billion years of the earth, horses have been around a lot longer than we humans have. And so and they're prey animals, right? I know some people think, oh, they're so big, they're kind of scary maybe, but they're prey animals. They have to worry about mountain lions but they've lived through climate shocks, right? We think our climate changes a lot now. They've lived through way worse. They've lived through literal tectonic plates shifting. They've been through a lot of hard things, and yet they thrive. They're one of the most long-standing species on the planet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Carry on. Sorry.
No, I know, it's an amazing fact, and they're beautiful and majestic. So, there's 3 lessons that tie very closely to my subtraction work, that stop, drop, roll method that you talked about. And so the first is that horses are robustly present. It's not that they meditate or that they have learned that it's the way to be a good leader, but they have to pay attention so that they know if they're in danger. And so they are, it's not that they go meditate on a mountain or, go to retreats every quarter to get more grounded. They are just eyes wide open, present and attuned to the other horses in their herd, to the environment, to the weather, to food sources, right? And so that's the first thing we need to do as leaders, is not to extract ourselves and go off on retreat, but really get present in the moment. The second thing that is very powerful, maybe the favorite lesson that leaders take away from the work we do, is conservation of energy. And so again, not because horses have good time management strategy, right? But because every step they take, every flick of an ear or of their tail burns calories. And it takes away the chance that they will have the energy to escape a predator should that predator come and attack. And so they do the least possible action to get the desired result. Now, we've all been in rooms where there's a lot of noise and energy and effort being blown around. And so what if we just asked, could I do a little less here and still get the result I want? Because then I would have more energy for the next crisis, which we all know is coming. Any leader in business now, right? We're facing a continuous change and crisis. And then the third thing that's quite amazing is that horses are very sensitive to authenticity and congruence. Another leadership superpower. And the trick here, again, is evolutionary. So horses and mountain lions live in the same ecosystems, right? That's why they're a predator-prey pair. If they didn't live in the same places, it wouldn't work. And so if horses were always freaked out whenever there was a mountain lion around, they would always be freaking out, which doesn't go well with the energy conservation. And so what they have learned is to tell the difference between a mountain lion who is going about their business and getting water or sleeping or raising their young or doing whatever they're doing, and a mountain lion that is lying, that is pretending not to be in the area, and they are hunting and really actively putting that horse in danger, right? So as a matter of biology, horses can tell that difference between an authentic mountain lion hanging out getting a drink and an inauthentic mountain lion pretending not to be there so they might attack. And so this is the education that has come from the horses. It's really profound. They have such a gentle but powerful way of teaching these very relevant modern leadership lessons.
Wonderful. So much to learn from the horses, Nell. But I sometimes wonder, then why do they say no horsing around?
Okay. It's a good question. I think it might be another outdated leadership lesson. It's like inbox zero. No one can keep up with that anymore. I think we should horse around.
Absolutely. So let's get straight to the subtraction strategy. Help us understand when we talk of subtraction, especially for high performers. They keep on experimenting, and have so many templates in their mind. They think all these things have worked. Why to subtract? So that is why my question is, how should I know what to subtract, when to subtract, especially when they have been working so well?
Yes, it's a great question. And indeed, right, I call us gold star junkies. I did not get to Harvard by playing video games all afternoon, right? Like I am right there with you in terms of more reading, more books, more credentials, more habits, stay later, get up earlier. Here I am at 6:30 a.m. But the problem, AJ, is that there's an economic law of diminishing returns, which says that if you do more of the same, you hit a ceiling. And so while you may have gotten returns initially for this effort and this reading and these degrees and those hours, your returns start to flatten out and eventually they stop growing. Unfortunately, as high performers, as helpers, I say even, right? We're impact-driven people. We want to make the world a better place and grow our career and our profile and earn money, all of the things. We keep doing more and it stops working, so we do more, and it's not working, so we do more, and we burn out. And we need our helpers right now. We need high achievers to be running the countries and the governments and the organizations of this world well. And so I really am passionate about getting this message out that actually what you need once you hit that level is to do less. There is no potential for improvement if there's no capacity, right? If you're working on a project, that's probably obvious to you, but sometimes we forget in our own lives and careers. And so when to subtract, honestly, always. This world is so fast moving and there's so much piling on and the change is coming so fast. We constantly have to be asking ourselves this lens of what can I stop doing here? What am I doing that's no longer efficient or useful? So when always be asking yourself that question before every meeting, before every quarter, before every new project, right? Always. How to know what is a very wise question. And so this is the stop, drop, roll process. That's when you put that into effect. And so stop is about open eye data collection. So this may not be a university-funded double-blind research study. This may be a quick gut check of, is my heart pounding? Is my jaw clenched, right? Are my shoulders up around my ears and I'm nervous? Or it might be customer data over the last year, right? Or anything in between. But we need to stop and listen to ourselves and our context, which is another thing that we don't get very well trained or incentivized to do in this world of onslaught. Yeah. So number one, stop. Then I can't tell you what to subtract. I don't know what you need to subtract, right? Your listeners have busy and complex, high-performing lives. They do very technical things beyond my pay grade. But once you've done that stop, then we drop. And this is where we experiment with subtracting things, right? I'm not insisting on a permanent embargo that once you say you're subtracting it, it's done and gone forever, never can you go back. But just experiment. What if we had a 30-minute meeting instead of a 60? What if my one-on-ones were every other week rather than every week? Because we're on Slack daily anyway. And look, if that's a problem and you miss the in-between week, put it back on the calendar. No problem. But if we don't experiment with some of these things, we're really trapped in our time. And the final piece is the most fun one. We roll. And this is where we can actually have more impact without doing more, because we connect the dots of all the things we're doing and we find ways. I've seen it in my life over and over. I see it with clients. You can make your actions multitask. So you're not multitasking. It doesn't work. The neurologists have proven that. But your action is multitasking, right? That meeting is serving multiple purposes. The way you are preparing for a client is also, maybe you're walking while you do it. And so you're getting your steps in, right? There are ways to kind of connect all the efforts we make and get more impact as a result.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Nell. I'm very much here. So just some technical issue, but I will.
No worries.
I'm very much here on audio. So
I'm
to
hearing
understand, thank you. So Nell, to understand this better, you see the law of diminishing returns. This is also part of economics. A lot of these leaders, yes, lot of these leaders have read economics. Why don't they remember this part? They always remember the top line, bottom line, bank accounts, bank balance, profit making, those things, salary increase, all those things, they tend to understand it much more better. How would you push this idea of subtraction into a mind like that? Especially when it's not only about Them, they'll think about, if it's a CEO, it will think about the board of directors, the chairman, and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, what should be the guiding force or guiding light here in terms of subtraction? There, should it be economics or should it be about humanity or purpose?
Yeah. AJ, I really believe it has to be everything. My version of subtraction is systematic. It comes from systems thinking. And so we just heard, there was a lot of talk in Davos, as there always is, right? But we heard this conversation from very smart, very economic minded people that if there is no nature, there are no customers. And if there are no people, the line is even shorter. There certainly are no customers, much less workers, much less suppliers, much less board members. And so I think that's what's really important for people to remember now is that we have to stop this false choice, right? Congratulations. We have created so much technology and so much innovation and so much human potential in this moment that we can have it all in balance, right? If we're intelligent about how we compromise, maybe we can't make, we don't need to make that many more billionaires. Maybe we can have some 100 millionaires who have worked really hard and paid taxes and paid healthy wages and built great companies and made a lot of money while enriching other people as well and delivering value to customers. So it's a wonderful question. And my suggestion would be that if we have to make a choice, we probably need to put humanity first, because if we're not around, things fall apart pretty quickly. And humans need money and the dignity of work. And so very closely after that is an economic system that functions for all of us.
Absolutely. Let me understand it this way. The key signs for a leader that they should subtract rather than add. How should they read the signs around them within their organizations or whatever work they do?
I think that, the piece is that often what happens for leaders is that we have an intense personal event. So I'll briefly share my story, which is that, I had learned this thing about one-dimensional leadership. I learned it didn't work. And so I spent 10 years building a company where my time and my impact and my personal life and my wellness and my health all worked together. And AJ, I was inspired. I was aligned. I was doing powerful work. Clients loved it. Investors were really supportive. It was a good thing. And I was just back from a retreat. I spent a fabulous week in Italy, healthy and beautiful and all the things. I come back, I'm driving to my trainer so that I can get strong and build muscles and live a long time. And I went head on into a 20-ton landscaping truck. I wake up to a voice saying, "Ma'am, do you need an ambulance?" And this was such a literal wake-up call, right? Not only could I have really seriously injured, maybe worse, myself, but also other people. Luckily, we all walked away fine. But that impact, literal impact, and seeing the totaled car and the smoking scene was my moment of awakening that as aligned and purposeful and high performing as you might be, doing too much is simply dangerous. So call it psychology, call it economics, call it reality, call it awakening and spirituality. It's all of those things, right? And so often we hear the story of a CEO who loses a grandchild to mental health or disease, or has their own cancer diagnosis, or, loses a spouse, or loses a client, or has a lawsuit out of nowhere, right? Whatever the external impact is, and then changes their life and realizes that they need to focus on what really matters. And so my hope, and why I'm so grateful to be with you today, is that not everyone needs a head-on collision or a cancer diagnosis or losing a grandchild to recognize that we know when we're doing too much. We know when we're stretched thin and we're getting sick in ways that we wouldn't usually get sick. We're being short and irritable with our spouse and the people we love the most. We're losing creativity and not functioning as well as we used to, right? These signs are everywhere these days. And so don't wait for the literal collision to change things.
Absolutely, absolutely. Don't wait for the literal collision to change things. For a common person who is not a high performer, who is not a great achiever in that sense of success, but is a extraordinary, ordinary man, how should they subtract? What should they subtract?
Anything that's not working anymore, anything that's not serving you, right? So we talked, one thing that I think every person can relate to was an article I wrote a few weeks ago about what if we subtracted other people? And now I am confessedly a little bit of an introvert, but I also love other people. I really have enjoyed our time. I like you, AJ. I like a lot of my clients. I love friends and family. So I don't mean every other person, but we talked about 3 versions of people that you should subtract. And I think every person can relate to this. The first are people who criticize you or your work, but don't know and care about you. Right? There's an idea called a loving critic. And so feedback is important. Feedback is a gift. It is valuable to listen to people and hear what we could do better as people, as professionals, whatever. But if those people don't know you and your work and care about you, actually we can subtract their feedback because it's not helpful and it's distracting and it might really hurt us. So that's one thing to subtract. The second is imaginary other people. Yeah. So what we think our neighbor thinks about how we decorate our house or where we put out our trash. Honestly, the rule in psychology is people think about you way less than you think. So don't worry about it. And the third are people we make up characters in our head. Right? That's maybe we had a second grade teacher who really made fun of our accent or the way we stood or the fact that we got a question wrong. Those characters can really stay with us in a very unhelpful way. That teacher, believe me, has not thought about you in even longer than your neighbor. So let them go, subtract them. I think that's a really helpful way to get back to being happy and stable and productive and generous with our friends and family, is to let go of some of this noise and distraction that other people can create.
Absolutely. How about subtracting artificial intelligence, AI, more of subtracting smartphone, so-called smartphone to so-called dumb phone, more to feed the earth, more to, add reality and real life into our lives?
Mm-hmm. I would say, my subtractions are always a little subtle, right? Because again, we're using systems thinking, we're thinking really relationally. So there are very few things that I have this, I said no permanent embargoes, and I don't think it's often black and white. So look, smartphones are smart. My smartphone does a lot for me, and it creeps like those imaginary other people in unproductive ways. So subtract the ways that it is not serving me. And AI is the same, right? We have to be really careful with these brilliant next level technologies that we are not serving them.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are not serving them, but they are serving us. There is so much to learn about all this from you, Nell, and I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of leaders would want to connect with you, learn more from you, also about your methods, and also about the benefit of horses. What's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, so my website is nell3d.com, and that is a good kind of, joining place where I would encourage people to go from there. First is the writing section where I write about all of this. I interview people talking about their uses of subtraction. And so there's a really robust selection there. I just put in a link. I don't know if you want to share it with listeners. That's actually a 90-day free guest pass so that people can get behind the paywall and see everything that I've got. There's a mini course on systematic subtraction, and today is day 6 of a 100-day subtraction practice, which is really where I encourage people to engage, because we're changing a lot of how we have performed. And so, like going to the gym and building those strong muscles for balance and longevity, we got to build the muscle of subtraction, so that, as you asked in the beginning, when do we subtract? Always, but not if we haven't built the muscle. So I really welcome listeners. I would love to see you all over there in the 100-day practice.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, AJ. It was a delight.